This is the most toxic word in the English language. This. The word is can't. And some of you may be thinking, what about all those awful swear words that I know? Well, fair enough, but all swear words really do is convey emotion. They make a point. Whereas the word can't represents an entire negative mindset, one that holds us back. And as soon as that word is mentioned, it kills curiosity. Today, we're going to tell you how these 4 letters are holding you back. My name's James, and this is Tom, who in 2015 sent me a series of drunken text messages. There's nothing out of the ordinary about receiving drunken text messages from Tom, but this particular set of messages would ultimately alter the course of our lives and kickstart a decade-long journey of overcoming both physical and mental feats that would lead to us being on this stage today.
So this drunken communication set out a pretty simple goal. James and I were going to climb into a 6-meter rowing boat and attempt to row 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean, from Gran Canaria to Barbados. The main problem was, neither of us had ever rowed. We had never sailed, and we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. When we told everyone around us about our grand plans of ocean adventure, we were laughed at. You're stupid, it's impossible, you can't. 54 days after pushing off land in Gran Canaria, we arrived into Barbados somehow alive. We had overcome huge obstacles in the form of a fully fledged hurricane, a nighttime capsize which threw James into the ocean, and a near miss with an enormous tanker. When we arrived into Barbados, the physical changes were clear. We had the beards, the tans, the weight loss, but something else had changed. We had essentially realized our true potential and the power of what can be achieved when you remove the word can't.
So after arriving back to London, and much to the dismay of our parents and our partners, we left our jobs to become professional adventurers. And we are completely aware of how ridiculous that sounds and is. But we're professional adventurers in the least traditional sense. Typically, adventure is full. It's a world full of remarkable individuals who, through cinematic documentaries, tell us to leave our comfort zone and fulfill our true potential. They do this while breaking records and achieving world first without even really breaking a sweat. It's all actually pretty impressive, to be honest. But unfortunately, that is not us. We're unconventional adventurers, to say the least. We're just 2 mates with a distinct lack of skill and ability who come up with big ideas in the pub every single time. It's our mission as the Tempest Two to show that ordinary people like us can do extraordinary things. And it all starts when you remove the word can't. For us, that's seen us cross oceans, traverse Patagonia, stand in the Sahara Desert and on top of some of the most iconic mountains in the world.
Now, I know what you're all thinking. This sounds pretty fun, and at moments it is. But unfortunately for us, one of the results of being distinctly average at almost everything is that we have lived our entire adult lives in a perpetual state of fear. These incredible images and moments that litter our Instagram have only really been made possible by constantly pushing ourselves further and further outside our comfort zone. Waking up every morning dreading the training, the learning, the failing. And as we ticked off each adventure, we were noticing this profound difference within ourselves. We were becoming more motivated, more resilient, and stronger mentally than ever before. But why was this? Until recently, it was completely unknown. But now we know that the secret lies in a small part of our brain called the AMCC.
The AMCC, or the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, is the region of our brain that is responsible for how we react to both mental and physical stress. It controls our level of motivation, willpower, and tenacity. We can think of this part of our brain as our motivation muscle. Now, the new research indicates that individuals with a larger AMCC are often high-performing and show a greater sense of resilience, whereas those with a smaller AMCC may lack willpower and drive, may suffer from mental health issues, and even show an increased likelihood of developing Alzheimer's and dementia down in later life. But what is incredibly exciting about this motivation muscle is that, like any other muscle in the body, it can grow with an increase of activity. so we can literally train our willpower. The Stanford professor and now the world's most famous neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Huberman, has said that these recent findings are one of the biggest breakthroughs in the history of neuroscience.
So the big question, how do we all grow it? And let's return to that muscle analogy just for 1 second. So let's say your goal was to build bigger, stronger biceps. You would need to go to the gym. You would need to lift weights, increase the load, the reps, the intensity to stimulate that muscle growth. And our AMCC works in a very similar way, but rather than dumbbells, it's mental reps that we need. And our AMCC grows when we do challenging things we do not want to do. And the end of that sentence is absolutely crucial, because what lights up and engages this part of our brain isn't what we'd all expect. We'd all naturally assume that the harder, the more challenging the task, the greater the activity. But the true correlation lies not with the difficulty of the task, but the amount we do not want to do it.
So let's say we run marathons for fun, if you're one of those people, and you enjoy it, and sure, it's a massive challenge and it's tough, but you're doing it with a smile on your face. Now, while that's great, it's not developing your AMCC. On the contrary, let's say you really don't want to go on that run, but you know you should. You've got to drag yourself out of the house to even run round the block. Well, now we're talking. So that's it. Put simply, adversity is the most potent stimulus for our AMCC. And it's that word can't that is getting in the way of us ever benefiting from that adversity.
So this was the desktop background on my MacBook, which we took across the Atlantic Ocean. And halfway across the Atlantic, we went through an enormous hurricane. We spent 3 days in a tiny cabin the size of a single bed. And in those 3 days, we made the stupid decision that when we got home, we were going to leave our jobs. We were going to take the Tempest Two full-time for this life full of adventure. And we started to jot down our next big challenge. Was it Everest, South Pole, North Pole, Amazon? And as a complete joke, James pointed at the screen and said,
"What about climbing El Capitan?"
"Impossible. We'd never climbed. We laughed it off. We can't."
4 years later, we found... Yeah, we did it again. We found ourselves in Yosemite Valley, standing in El Cap Meadow, staring up at the 3,000-foot vertical granite rock face of El Capitan. This is the mecca of rock climbing. And we'd spent a grueling 18 months learning to climb. And going from zero experience to standing on the summit of El Capitan was our biggest challenge to date. And we would receive messages regularly from our friends and family, them professing their envy of our dream jobs. But the reality for us just felt so different. We'd been pushing ourselves for so hard, so far outside of our comfort zones that we actually resented the preparation and hated it. And more often than not, we did not want to do it. But as we now know, what's hard is healthy. And with every fall that we took, we were sharpening our mindset.
So this is a perfect example of how all of us can shape and grow our mindset. And really, for us, this happens when you become curious about your own potential. And as we had ticked off challenge after challenge, we had realized that by removing the word can't, anything is really possible.
Yeah, luckily for all of us, this is an extreme example. The AMCC does not discriminate. So yes, while sitting 2,500 feet up on the side of El Capitan, dreading that next pitch of climbing, that will stimulate your AMCC. So will the more daily, more mundane tasks that we all don't want to do, like taking the bins out in the pouring rain, or finally putting that shelf up that we've been putting off for years.
And annoyingly, everyone has that one friend who can't resist every time they get within 6 feet of an ice bath, posting it on Instagram, making us feel guilty as we lie in bed. As annoying these people are, they're actually onto something. Getting into freezing cold water never is really something you want to do. It's never something that becomes comfortable or convenient, therefore making it one of the most widely available steroids for your motivation muscle.
So this decade-long obsession that we've had with removing the word can't and the power of doing those things that we don't really want to do has only recently met the neuroscience and the research that backed it up. And we just had to share that with you because we know that everyone in this room and everyone watching will have big goals, big dreams, and big ambitions.
So don't let this word hold you back. Don't let the word can't stop you from living a fun, adventurous, and exciting life. And when you find yourself reverting back to that C word,
I can't do that. That is too scary.
I can't go for a run, it's raining.
Can't be bothered.
Just remember, yes, you can, and you probably should. So please do start small, start today, and do what you can't. Thank you.
Mental.